What do people think of Manchester?
It has changed for the better.
It's a great place to pass through on the way to Scotland. It makes me dead tired.
It's well worth living in.
You've got to be fit and versatile.
I think it's a fascinating place.
I think it's great and it's growing all over.
Well, it suits some, doesn't it?
In fact, it suits over 500,000 of us who live in the city itself and another 2 million who live within 10 miles. But Manchester is much more than a place where many people live. It has a character and a history of its own.
It certainly is a city full of history wherever you look. Take, for instance, that building over there, the John Rylands Library. In it, they've got the earliest surviving portion of the Holy Bible, which goes back to 127 AD and was wrapped around the body of a mummy. Many people think that the old name for Manchester was Mancunium. It was actually Mamucium. When the Saxons came here, they recalled it Mamacester, not Manchester. And they didn't like the Roman town. They said it had been built by gods, because they couldn't understand the mechanics of the building. They used to fall down round their ears.
It's still falling. Manchester is replacing the old with the new, matching itself to its job as the natural capital of a big industrial region. Manchester is a magnet, drawing in 1 million people a day to work. And we work hard. Greater Manchester has played a vital part in Britain's prosperity ever since the start of the Industrial Revolution. Indeed, the Industrial Revolution really began here, in the cotton mills. King Cotton has long since been overtaken by many other industries, and the city centre is dominated by the gleaming new buildings of banks and insurance companies. Out at Trafford Park, we have the second largest industrial estate in the world, where heavy engineering, chemicals and man-made fibres jostle with electronics and computers. Because of its industrial and commercial importance, Manchester's become the centre of a great web of transport and communications. 5 motorways radiate from Manchester, fast trains link the city with all parts of the country, and the ship canal and the airport connect it with the rest of the world. Here in Manchester, we have the 3rd largest port in the country, now one of the most modern in the world. Manchester's importance is underlined by the rapid growth of the city's airport at Ringway, which is by far the biggest international airport outside London.
Your boarding card, sir. Gate number 5.
This is Manchester Airport, the second most important commercial airport in the United Kingdom, second only to Heathrow. Last year, we handled 1.7 million passengers and over 40,000 tons of freight. 45,000 passengers travelled between here and Amsterdam and 35,000 between here and New York. Already, 27 major airlines serve the airport of Manchester to over 70 destinations. The advent of the jumbo jet and similar large aircraft has meant that the airport's passenger facilities must be adapted so as to adequately handle the very large numbers of passengers expected over the next few years.
Manchester is Britain's second city for newspapers. The world's first press club was founded here, and today 5 national dailies and 4 Sunday papers are printed here. And it has its own newspaper. The Manchester Evening News is Britain's biggest regional evening newspaper. Its contents reflect the life of the region, and its voice is the voice of Manchester. Like Manchester, the Evening News is changing. A few years ago, it took the brave decision to leave its historic home on Cross Street and to join 2 national papers in building Britain's biggest regional newspaper centre, an exciting new venture in shared production facilities. This new home of the Evening News has taken shape on Deansgate, next to the famous Rylands Library. The architects have managed to blend the new with the old, and in doing so have created a striking modern building. The Costain Construction Group, with their reputation for completing contracts on time, was awarded the job of building the new complex. It was finished in only 16 months, and as befits a newspaper office, all deadlines were successfully met on this tight schedule. The new building adds its contribution to the plans that will soon make this part of Manchester an oasis for the pedestrian, a place to rest away from the rush and bustle, and to relax in the intimacy of small courtyards and squares soothed by the sight of trees and flowers. Pass through this door and the tranquility is gone.
Good afternoon, Manchester Evening News.
This is a newspaper office. Telephones are ringing, teleprinters are clattering as news pours into the office round the clock, all having to be sifted, sorted, edited and set in metal. Even as the presses start rolling on the first edition of the day, these pages are being torn apart and reconstructed to take in the latest news from Manchester and the world. The creation of a newspaper is a daily miracle. The Evening News didn't move to Deansgate for the sake of a nice new building. It moved to enable it to expand and develop its service to readers and advertisers. The paper's printing in colour now, pictures, advertisements, even comics for the kids, and it's producing bigger papers with more news, more features, and more information and entertainment for the people of Manchester. Any newspaper should be the heart of the community it serves, and the Evening News is a strong heart for a strong community. Its pages convey the news as it affects the region, and its editorial columns and features give Manchester's views on the important issues of the day.
If you're going to try and be fair, though, it is a paradox. I mean, there are two cases. If you live there right on the edge of the airport, and the things are practically coming through the bedroom window, then you want them stopped. But you've only got to live 2 streets...
The Manchester Evening News serves a whole community. It doesn't just serve a section of the community. Its circulation area is a geographical area. It's the whole Manchester conurbation, which stretches from Bury to Crewe and from Chapel End of Flith to as far across as Lee. Really, the strategy is to get a copy of the paper into every house in that area. Now, obviously, if you're going to do that, it's no good just providing a newspaper which has minority interest. You've got to provide a newspaper which is a kind of package, which is full of all sorts of things that people are interested in. And above all, we hope that what we will provide will reflect the total life of the community.
The Evening News is read by all types of people too, men and women, young and old, rich and poor. It's read on the way home, a pleasure that marks the end of the working day, and most of all it's read at home, where it's welcomed as a friend dropping in. 75% of all copies of the paper are delivered to the home to be enjoyed by the family, for it is truly a newspaper for all the family, one that informs them on the news of the day, tells them what's on TV or at the pictures. The relationship between a newspaper and its community should be a two-way affair, and in Manchester this is certainly true. The people of Manchester advertise their houses, cars, cookers, and old prams in the classified columns of the paper. The city stores set out their wares and advertise their bargains to the readers. Even the important stages in people's own lives are marked in the births, marriages and deaths, and Mancunians can make their opinions known through that magnificent forum, Postbag. The Evening News has other contacts with its readers, carrying out regular research to discover who reads the paper and what they want from it. In fact, well over 1 million people read the Evening News each night. That's 61% of all adults in Greater Manchester. This makes it the most widely read daily paper in places as far apart as Altrincham, Ashton, Rochdale and Stockport. Throughout Manchester, it's read by twice as many people as the best-selling national paper, and a quarter of its readers see no other daily newspaper. Manchester has a range and quality of shops unrivaled outside London. All the big stores are here, and Greater Manchester has more supermarkets and self-service stores than in any other region. New shopping centres are being built all over the area. Manchester housewives certainly know all about value for money, and they make good use of the advertisements in the Evening News when doing their family shopping. They enjoy reading the recipes and hints from Henri the chef, and they're guided by the women's pages and fashion comments. Most men are interested in sport, and in Manchester that's hardly surprising.
Well, Manchester is a great footballing city with two very, very good sides. And while there's obviously a lot of rivalry in it, I think it's a friendly rivalry. It's like the city itself, you know. Matt Busby and I have been friends all our football life, and Summerby and Georgie Best, they're friendly. And this is the great thing I feel about this city, particularly when we first came here. You know, we're a little in the shadow of Manchester United, but they had preserved the football, and everybody was so crazy about it. Wonderful place to be managing it.
2 top football clubs, and 4 other football league teams, not to mention rugby and cricket. The Evening News has long been famous for its honest and critical sports coverage, and it's no surprise that 2/3 of the men who buy the news read its sports pages. They also read it for comments on horses, dogs, and the stock market. Greater coverage of business news is one of the early fruits of the paper's move to Deansgate, and more hard-headed Mancunians are turning to it to see what Manchester thinks of the day's business news. The next generation of the nation's thinkers and leaders are also well catered for. New schools and colleges are being built, and Manchester University, already the biggest in the provinces, is expected to become one of the biggest in Europe. By 1980, it'll have a student population of 14,000. The university has many claims to fame. One of the most spectacular is the radio telescope at Jodrell Bank, where the Department of Radio Astronomy pushes back the frontiers of science, listening to the stars. This huge saucer is a symbol of Manchester's enthusiasm for the future. The future lies with Manchester's youth, and they too have their symbols. A success in anyone's terms, Georgie displays the enterprise of young people. The young people of Manchester today have opportunities unheard of by their parents, and they're taking full advantage of them. They have more money, they have independence, self-confidence, and an aggressive honesty sometimes missing in older generations. 63% of them between 16 and 24 read the Evening News to find out what's happening, what jobs are available and where to go. And Manchester always has plenty to attract the young. Clubs, discos, cinemas, theatres, concerts, restaurants, and a fantastic growth in shops for the young. Record bars, hairstylists, boutiques. Carnaby Street has long since lost its monopoly of trendy gear. A fair test of the strength of any community is the enterprise and vitality of its young. And judging by the youth of today, Manchester will surely be as famous in the future as it has been in the past. And as Manchester grows in size and influence, so will its own Manchester Evening News, an important voice for a famous city.
The earliest surviving portion of the Holy Bible, which goes back to 127 AD and was wrapped around the body of a mummy. Many people think that the old name for Manchester was Mancunium. It was actually Mamucium. When the Saxons came here, they recalled it Manchester, not...
What do people think of Manchester?
It has changed for the better.
It's a great place to pass through on the way to Scotland. It makes me dead tired.
It's well worth living in.
You've got to be fit and versatile.
I think it's a fascinating place.
I think it's great and it's growing all over.
Well, it suits some, doesn't it?
In fact, it suits over 500,000 of us who live in the... city itself, and another 2 million who live within 10 miles. But Manchester is much more than a place where many people live. It has a character and a history of its own.
It certainly is a city full of history wherever you look. Take, for instance, that building over there, the John Rylands Library. In it, they've got the